You may not be comfortable with what I'm about to say right now, but still, listen to it anyway. All of it. Because I'm about to say something that took me years to say out loud. Not because I didn't know it, but because I was afraid of what saying it would cost me. Turns out, the cost of saying it is nothing compared to the cost of keeping it locked inside. So here it is. All of it. Stay with me. What if everything you were taught about God's love has a fatal flaw buried right in the middle of it? Not a small flaw, not a technicality, a flaw so big, so structural, that once you see it, you genuinely cannot unsee it. I didn't want to see it. I fought not to see it, but it's there. And I think you already feel it too, even if you never had the words for it. Today, we're giving it words. Today, I want to talk about the moment my faith cracked open. Not the moment it died, not the moment I walked away, the moment a question got inside me that I couldn't get back out. The kind of question that doesn't announce itself loudly. It just sits there, quietly in the back of your mind, and one day you turn around and realize it has been dismantling everything while you were busy being a good Christian. Here's the question. Can an all-loving God and the concept of hell exist in the same reality at the same time? That's it. That's the question. Simple, clean, and for me, after years of preaching, after years of defending the faith, after years of sitting with grieving people and telling them God is love, God is good, God is for you, I could not answer it anymore. Not honestly, not without mental gymnastics so elaborate they would embarrass an Olympic gymnast. And I need to walk you through why, because this isn't just an intellectual exercise for me. This is personal. This cost me something, and I think it might cost you something too if you're willing to stay with me. Let me start with what I was taught, and what I taught others. The traditional argument goes like this. God is all-knowing, so he knew we would sin. And because he is all-loving, he sent Jesus, his own son, to die in our place and provide a way out of sin and out of hell. And he used his power, being all-powerful, to defeat death through the resurrection of Jesus. So technically, nobody has to go to hell. God made a way. That's the rescue mission. That's the gospel. That's the whole thing. And look, I preached that. I believed it. I stood in front of congregations and I felt it in my chest when I said it. The love of God is so vast that he sent his son to save us from the fate we deserved. That's a beautiful story. It genuinely is. There is something in the human soul that responds to a rescue narrative, someone paying a price they didn't owe to free someone who couldn't free themselves. It's powerful. It moves people. It moved me. But here is where the whole thing started to come apart. That argument, the rescue mission argument, only works if God found hell already existing and then decided to save us from it. Like he discovered this terrible thing out there in the universe, this place of eternal torment, and said, I love these people too much to let them end up there. Let me send my son. Let me make a way. But that's not what the theology actually says. God is the architect of everything, all-powerful, all-knowing, the creator of every system, every law, every consequence, every reality, which means God didn't discover hell. God designed hell. God built hell. God decided before the foundation of the world, before Adam, before Eve, before the first sin was ever committed, God decided that the consequence for human sin would be eternal conscious torture. Not temporary punishment, not rehabilitation, not a period of correction and growth, not even just the absence of God, which some theologians try to soften it to. Eternal conscious torture, forever, without end, without relief, without hope of it ever stopping. And then he created humans knowing they would sin. He created us with a nature inclined towards sin. The Bible itself says we are born in sin, shaped in iniquity. And he placed us in a world full of temptation with a lifespan of maybe 70 or 80 years if we're lucky. And he said, the consequence for how you live those few decades is that you will burn forever. Let me put some math on that. 80 years of living. Let's say you sin every single day. Let's say you are genuinely, comprehensively sinful your entire life. That's 80 years of sin being punished with eternity. Eternity has no number. You cannot calculate the ratio of 80 years to forever because forever never ends. The punishment doesn't just outweigh the crime. The punishment makes the concept of proportionality completely meaningless. And God, the being that designed this system, is the one we are praising for being loving. Now, I want to be careful here, because this is where people usually stop me and say, but God gave us a way out. That's the whole point of Jesus. That's the whole point of the gospel. The way exists. And I hear that. I genuinely hear it. But think about what you're actually saying when you say that. You're saying that God built a machine designed to destroy humanity, a machine that runs on human sin, produces eternal suffering, and was set in motion the moment He created us, knowing we'd fall. And then, because He loves us, He provided a loophole to escape the machine He built. That is not a love story. That is a hostage situation. Imagine a father who builds a room in his house, a room filled with something that will cause his children unimaginable, never-ending pain. And then he tells his children, "I love you, but if you disobey me, you go in that room forever. And because I love you so much, I've provided a way for you to avoid the room I built." All you have to do is follow specific instructions, believe specific things, say specific prayers, live a specific way, and you can escape the room I built. Will we call that father loving? Will we look at that situation and say, what an incredible act of grace, what a beautiful rescue mission? We would call the authorities. We would call that abuse. We would say that father is using the threat of torture as a mechanism of control. And we would be right. And here is the part that broke something in me when I finally let myself see it clearly. God had options. This is the thing that the traditional theology never wants to sit with. If God is all-powerful, truly, genuinely, without limitation, all-powerful, then hell was not the only option. It was not even the most logical option. An all-powerful God could have designed consequences that were proportional. An all-powerful God could have designed a system of rehabilitation, a process of correction, growth, restoration. An all-powerful God could have designed annihilation. If you reject God, you simply cease to exist. No torment, no eternal suffering, just the end. Many theologians actually hold this view. It's called annihilationism, and honestly, even that will be more defensible than what the traditional view asks us to accept. But instead, out of all the infinite options available to an infinite being, God chose eternal, conscious torment. And then He called it justice. I used to defend that. I used to say God's justice is perfect even when we don't understand it. I used to say His ways are higher than our ways. And I believe that was genuine. I wasn't lying when I said it. But I was using language to avoid thinking. I was using the word mystery as a door I could close whenever a question got too uncomfortable. The problem is, the questions don't respect closed doors. They come back. They come back at 2 a.m. when the house is quiet and the theology you've been holding starts to feel like it doesn't fit you anymore. They come back when you sit across from someone who is genuinely, desperately trying to believe, and you can see them straining under the weight of a God they're terrified of. They come back when you watch someone get rejected by a church community because they couldn't perform certainty well enough, and you think, this system is not producing what it claims to produce. Here is something I want to say carefully, because I know there are people watching this who love God, who have built their entire lives around their faith, who have found genuine comfort, genuine community, genuine transformation in Christianity. I am not trying to take that from you. I am not here to burn down your house. But I think the healthiest faith is one that can withstand honest questions. And I think a God who is actually God, actually infinite, actually beyond our comprehension, should be able to handle being questioned. The God of the Bible Himself said, "Come, let us reason together." Job demanded a hearing, and God showed up. The Psalms are full of furious, desperate, accusatory prayers, and they're in the sacred text. The wrestling is already in the book. So I'm wrestling. I'm wrestling with the fact that the same theology that tells me God is love also tells me God designed a system of eternal torment and then gets praised for offering a way around it. I'm wrestling with the fact that the way around it, the salvation through Jesus, is not equally accessible to every human being who has ever lived. What about the billions of people born before Jesus? What about the billions born in places where the gospel never reached them? What about people with profound cognitive disabilities who cannot process the cognitive requirements of belief? Is the answer really that an all-loving God consigns them to the system He built because of circumstances entirely outside their control? The traditional answers to those questions have always felt like they're trying to protect the theology rather than actually answer the question. They feel like a lawyer defending a client they privately know is guilty. Technically competent, but not honest. And here is where I landed. Here is the brick, to use my own metaphor, that came out of the wall and started the whole thing coming down. Hell, as traditionally taught, is not a logical consequence of sin in a universe run by an all-loving God. It is a control mechanism. It is the ultimate threat in a system that requires your compliance. believe the right things, say the right prayer, live the right way, or face something so terrifying that the threat of it overrides your ability to think clearly about whether any of this actually makes sense. Fear is the most powerful compliance tool ever invented, and a God who rules through the fear of eternal torture is not asking for your love, he is demanding your submission. Those are not the same thing. Love given under threat of torture is not love. It is survival. It is a hostage saying what their captor needs to hear. I want to be clear about what I am not saying. I am not saying God does not exist. I am not saying Jesus was not a real and extraordinary figure. I am not saying there is no such thing as morality or consequence or spiritual reality. I am saying that the specific architecture of the traditional hell doctrine, when examined honestly against the claim that God is all-powerful, all-knowing, and all-loving, does not hold together. The math doesn't work. The character doesn't hold. You cannot build a torture chamber, offer a conditional escape from it, and call yourself love. You just can't. And I genuinely think that more people feel this than will ever say it out loud, because saying it out loud costs something. It costs relationships. It costs community. It costs the identity you've built around a belief system. I know. I paid some of those costs. I understand why people keep the question locked up and just keep performing certainty. But I also think living under a theology that doesn't actually hold up costs something too. It costs you your honesty. It costs you the ability to fully trust your own mind. It costs you the freedom to love God, if God is real, not because you're terrified of what happens if you don't, but because you actually want to. That kind of faith, honest, uncoerced, clear-eyed, chosen freely, seems to me more valuable than any faith built on the foundation of eternal threat. Maybe that's wrong. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's a framework I haven't encountered yet that makes all the pieces fit. If you've got it, I genuinely want to hear it. Not the Sunday school version, not the version designed to close the question down. The real answer, the one that holds up at 2 a.m. when it's quiet and you let yourself actually think about it. Drop it in the comments. Let's talk about it. Because this question deserves a real conversation, and I think you're capable of having one.